A Harmony of the Gospels for Students of the Life of Christ by A.T. Robertson. 771. The guilty fears of Herod Antipas in Tiberias about Jesus because he had beheaded the Baptist in Machaerus. Mark chapter 6 verses 14 to 29. And King Herod heard. Mark's connection shows that Herod Antipas was impressed by the account of miracles which the disciples had wrought, as well as by those of Jesus himself. Thereof, for his name had become known, and he said, some ancient authorities read, they said, John the Baptist, or in Greek it's baptizer, is risen from the dead, and therefore do these powers work in him. Sometimes they buried people that turned out to be alive and they dug their way out. Usually a person still dies in that circumstance, but others said it is Elijah, and others said it is a prophet, even as one of the prophets. But Herod, when he heard thereof, said, John, whom I beheaded, he is risen. For Herod himself had sent forth and laid hold upon John, and bound him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, for he had married her. For John said unto Herod, Josephus' Antiquities, book 18, volume 2, says of John, that Herod thought it best, by putting him to death, to prevent any mischief he might cause, and not bring himself into difficulties by sparing a man who might make him repent of it, when it should be too late. Josephus is in no wise controverts the picture in Mark. Well, Josephus wouldn't have liked the sort of person that the Christians say Jesus was, and so they think that a couple lines in Josephus was edited, in his writings, where Herodias appears as the one who prods Antipas to put John out of the way to satisfy her resentment against him for his rebuke of her adulterous marriage. Josephus merely presents the public and political aspects of the imprisonment and death of John. It is not lawful for thee to have thy brother's wife, see Leviticus 18:16 and 20:21, and Herodias set herself against him and desired to kill him, and she could not, for Herod feared John, knowing that he was a righteous man and a holy, and kept him safe. Well, if there's not outright justification for execution, then, just because you don't think somebody's a good person doesn't mean you should kill them. And when he heard him, he was much perplexed. Or many ancient authorities read, did many things. And he heard him gladly. And when a convenient day was come, that Herod on his birthday made a supper to his lords and the high captains, or military tribunes, and the chief men of Galilee, and when the daughter of Herodias herself, some ancient authorities read his daughter Herodias, and the Greek for the tribunes is Kiliarch, came in and danced. She, or it, pleased Herod and them that sat at meat with him. And the king said unto the damsel, Ask of me whatsoever thou wilt, and I will give it thee. And he sware unto her, Whatsoever thou shalt ask of me, will I give it thee, unto the half of my kingdom. And she went out and said unto her mother, What shall I ask? And she said, The head of John the Baptist. And she came in straightway with haste unto the king and asked, saying, I will that forthwith give me in a charger the head of John the Baptist. And the king was exceeding sorry, but for the sake of his oaths and of them that sat at meat, he would not reject her. And straightway the king sent forth a soldier of his guard and commanded to bring his head. And he went and beheaded him in the prison, and brought his head in a charger, and gave it to the damsel, and the damsel gave it to her mother. And when his disciples heard thereof, they came and took up his corpse, and laid it in a tomb. Matthew chapter 14, verses 1 to 12. At that season, Herod the Tetrarch heard the report concerning Jesus, and said unto his servants, This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore do these powers work in him. For Herod had laid hold on John, and bound him, and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. For John said unto him, It is not lawful for thee to have her. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias danced in the midst, and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she should ask. And she, being put forward by her mother, saith, Give me here in a charger the head of John the Baptist. And the king was grieved, but for the sake of his oaths, and of them which sat at meat with him, he commanded it to be given. And he sent and beheaded John in the prison. And his head was brought in a charger, and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took up the corpse, and buried him, and they went and told Jesus. Now, in some cultures, our word for pimping also refers to those who, have their family members, or encourage or tolerate, per se, their family members, the immodesty and the immorality going out to a serious degree. Now, this was immodesty, so this wasn't fornication or adultery or something, but now if you say, people are going to make their own choices, so if you say something, that's sometimes all you can do, particularly in modern society. But, you find family members encouraging each other in things that they shouldn't encourage each other in. And Luke 9:7-9, Now Herod the Tetrarch heard of all that was done, and he was much perplexed, because that it was said by some that John was risen from the dead, and by some that Elijah had appeared, and by others that one of the old prophets was risen again. And Herod said, John I beheaded, but who is this, about whom I hear such things? And he sought to see him.